23 stab wounds. That's what it took to kill the most powerful man in the ancient world, but history class never tells you what happened next to the men who held those blades, because every single senator who drove a dagger into Julius Caesar on the Ides of March, 44 BC, met an end so brutal, so specific, so unnervingly fitting, that historians have quietly debated for centuries whether it was fate, karma, or something far darker at work. Some were hunted across 3 continents. Some lost their minds before they lost their lives. And some died in ways so gruesome their own allies refused to speak of it. This is the story history textbooks buried, and it starts with blood on a marble floor. Rome, 44 BC, a city that believed it sat at the center of the universe, and for a time it wasn't wrong. And the Roman Senate was not merely a political body, it was the soul of a civilization. Men who sat within its marble walls held more power than most kings in the ancient world. They were Rome's architects, its generals, its philosophers, and among them none burned brighter, or more dangerously, than Gaius Julius Caesar. By 44 BC, Caesar was everything the Senate feared most. He had conquered Gaul. He had crossed the Rubicon and turned the Republic on its head. He had been declared Dictator Perpetuo, dictator in perpetuity, a title that to Rome's oldest families felt less like honor and more like a slow burial of everything they'd built. The Republic, that sacred idea of shared power, was quietly suffocating under the weight of one man's ambition. So a group of senators, around 60 of them, calling themselves the Liberators, the Liberators, made a decision, not impulsively, not out of madness, but with cold, calculated conviction. They believed they were saving Rome. They believed history would honor them as heroes. They were catastrophically wrong, and the universe, it seems, had a very long memory. The assassination was supposed to be the ending. 23 stab wounds, a crumpled body at the base of Pompey's statue, the Liberators raising their blood-soaked hands to the Senate crowd, expecting applause, expecting relief, expecting Rome to exhale. Instead, silence. Then panic. The crowd didn't cheer, they ran. The senators themselves fled the chamber in terror, hiding in their homes, barricading doors, suddenly unsure whether they had liberated Rome or simply ignited it. Here's what none of them anticipated. Caesar had a will, and in that will he left his gardens to the Roman public and gave every citizen a personal gift of money. In a single document, a dead man turned the entire city against his killers. Then came Mark Antony's funeral speech. No dramatic accusations, just a slow, surgical reading of Caesar's will before an open-air crowd, followed by the public display of Caesar's mutilated toga. That was all it took. Rome exploded. The Liberators scattered. Brutus and Cassius fled east. Others disappeared into the provinces. A few arrogantly stayed, convinced the storm would pass. It didn't. Because Caesar's adopted heir, a 19-year-old boy named Octavian, had just arrived in Rome. Quiet, patient, smiling. And he had a list. Octavian, Mark Antony, and Lepidus formalized their alliance in 43 BC, the Second Triumvirate. And their very first act was not a battle. It was a list. The proscriptions. Names were written on stone tablets and posted publicly across Rome. If your name appeared on that list, you were no longer a citizen. You were prey. Bounty hunters flooded the streets. Slaves were offered freedom in exchange for their masters' heads. Literally. Decapitated heads of senators were nailed to the forum's speaker platform, the very stage from which Rome's greatest orators had once addressed the Republic. The most powerful men in the ancient world were being hunted like animals through their own city. Cassius and Brutus, the two most prominent assassins, raised armies and fled to the east. For a brief, desperate moment, It looked like they might actually win. At the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC, they faced Octavian and Antony across the plains of Macedonia. Two armies, one reckoning. Both men lost, both men died. But the manner of their deaths, and the fates of every other conspirator still breathing, were only just beginning to reveal how pitiless Rome's revenge truly was. Not one of Caesar's assassins died peacefully, not a single one. Brutus fell on his own sword at Philippi, reportedly whispering that virtue, the very principle he'd claimed to defend, had been nothing but an empty word. Cassius ordered his own freedmen to behead him on the same battlefield, having wrongly believed the battle was already lost. Decimus Brutus, one of Caesar's most trusted friends and a key conspirator, was abandoned by his own army, captured by a Gallic chieftain, and executed like a common criminal in an open field. Gaius Trebonius was seized in his bed by Antony's soldiers, dragged through the streets of Smyrna, and beheaded, his head used as a ball kicked through the city roads by laughing soldiers. Casca, the man who struck Caesar first, vanished from history entirely, presumed dead within 2 years, unmourned and unrecorded. Within 3 years of the Ides of March, virtually every conspirator was dead. Rome, the republic they swore to save, was gone anyway, replaced by the very empire their daggers were meant to prevent. They had killed the man. They could not kill what he represented. And perhaps that is the oldest, most uncomfortable truth that history keeps delivering, that power destroyed by violence rarely disappears. It transforms, it returns, and it remembers. So the next time someone tells you that removing one person can change the course of history, remember the men who tried it on the Ides of March. Remember what it cost them, and ask yourself, did anything actually change?